Up and running again. Okay, so that's basically scale. So for the next one, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna kind of move to another area of the drawing just because it's simpler with lines to understand. Trim, fillet, or some people call it fillet, and array. So first, doesn't matter. Well, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's draw a line. And let's do it at. We'll do it at 100, comma 100. So that should bring us way and far enough out of the way. So everybody should have the ortho on. I don't, but everyone should. F8. And then go ahead and after your base point of 100 by 100, let's go ahead and do 40 as your length. Then you can hit enter because I only need one line for now. So now, so we get some practice, we're going to rotate, copy this line 90 degrees from the midpoint. Okay? So we're going to rotate, select my line, hit enter, select my base point as the midpoint. Okay? Then we're going to copy that. We want a new one. And type 90. So you should end up with a little cross. Do this one. There, now you can see my cursor a little better. You guys see that orange or not really? Yeah? See in the back? You see the orange better or not really? No? White was better? Well, I'm just saying because like all the lines are just kind of getting. I'm getting confused on which was which. You want yellow? Let's try yellow. Is that better? Okay. Just have to make our layers non-yellow so they don't get confusing later. Okay, so everybody got the little crosshair? Yeah? Sure. Start from. Do you have a single line or no lines at all? Just one line? Okay. So we're going to rotate. Then I pick my line. Enter or space. Right click should do the same thing. Then I'm going to pick my midpoint. But I don't want to rotate this line. I want to copy this line. So I click the copy, the word copy. And then 90. Yes, it'll rotate at 90 degrees. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to do trim. So basically what we're doing is we're cutting the object. And we're cutting it back to another object. So the trim command is here. Or you can simply type the word trim. Or shortcut should be TR. So there's multiple ways of doing trimming. The easiest way in the beginning is just to kind of select the objects and everything that's going to be interacting with what you're trimming. So for this part, we're just going to select both of the lines. Then spacebar so that we'll move on. So the next step, whatever you touch now with your cursor, so if I click the bottom, that part's going to go away. If I click here, that part's going to go away. If I click here, that part's going to go away. So you can actually see it. It does it as I'm hovering over it. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah? Or no? Okay, well, I haven't even done anything yet, but... Okay, so trim, TR. Select both of my lines. Spacebar. And then we're just going to trim off the bottom part, so upside down T. And then enter to end the command.
I deleted.
What? You deleted it?
Yeah, I win.
So undo. Yep. You have both your lines?
Back to work.
You went too far. So rotate. Select the midpoint.
Rotate, select the midpoint.
Or select the object and select the midpoint. Okay. Then copy. You want to make sure that you copy it. You don't want to rotate the original line.
Is it C?
C. And then 90. Okay, so now type in TR or click the button trim.
Yep.
Okay. Then select the two lines.
In the midpoint?
It doesn't select both lines. Yeah, both lines. Select both of them.
Individually.
Yeah. So trim, select both lines, enter. Now you can see here it has a bunch of different little guys here that's telling. Yeah, so fence is similar to the selection point. Crossing, selection point. The projection, project is gonna be projection. I always leave the projection off because then you end up trimming something that you've not meant to trim on accident sometimes. Then the edge is gonna do the same thing, and then erase and undo. So if you accidentally trim something that you didn't mean to trim, you could undo without escaping the whole command. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna trim the bottom, and I'm gonna trim the right side off, right? Oh shoot, I didn't want the right side gone, so if I simply type U, enter, it'll bring back the right side. So, but if I go and I trim it off, then I hit spacebar, and then I hit undo, it brings back both. So inside of the command, it's gonna bring back the last one you just did. If you go out, if you finish the command and you undo, it's gonna undo that entire trim kind of section that you just did. So one more time. So trim, select both of my objects. I click the bottom and I click the right. Okay. Oh, I didn't want to do the right side. Shoot. Okay. So I'm still in the trim command. You can see here in my it still says trim. So, and you can see there's an undo feature right here. So I can click that and it's gonna bring back that one guy that I accidentally did. Okay. But if I were to trim it and then I hit enter, so now I'm no longer in any command whatsoever. And I go, oh, I didn't mean to trim that right side, and I undo it, it brings back both.
Hit that undo.
Yeah, so if you go undo, it'll bring back both. So that's what I'm saying. There's, so then you have to go back in, you have to trim the bottom part because we wanted to trim the bottom part off. Like that. Cool? So, next to trim, there's a little drop down arrow that is extend. Okay? So the first thing we want to do, let's take this guy and let's copy it. So copy. Okay? And I want to copy it down, and I want to copy it 20.
Where's the extent?
So there's a little arrow next to trim.
Oh.
But we're not doing it yet. We have to make some. We're gonna copy something so we have something to extend to. So go ahead and copy the bottom line down 20. So it should look like this.
So select the copy and
Select, yeah. Copy the horizontal line down
and just anywhere.
20.
Oh, 20.
Make sure your ortho's on. Okay. Everyone looks similar? Okay, so now we're gonna hit the little button on the little arrow, and we're gonna hit extend. So basically, what extend does is it does the exact opposite of trim. Matter of fact, there's a shortcut. If you hold shift, it'll do the exact opposite. And I'll show you that next. So basically, extend is if I have a line that's over here and it's floating, but I want it to go all the way over to this point, then you're gonna hit the boundary. So the first object that you're gonna select is that lower line. That's my boundary. That's where I want my line to get to. I want to extend my line to that point, right? So then I've selected that object. I could select the other objects as well, but for now, for the extend, it's easier if you just select the first one. Okay, so everyone should have this one highlighted. We're gonna hit space or enter or right click. So now it says extend. So now you got to select the object that you want to extend to your new boundary. So we're gonna take that middle guy. And you see if I hover over it, it's gonna extend to that boundary. If I select the other one, it gives me a little. This one will never ever extend to that object because they're running parallel to each other. You see? So in this case, if you were to use projection and you had two lines that were kind of angled, but at the moment they didn't cross, then in this case you could use the projection. So, so let's go ahead and let's extend it. Enter. Okay. So another way that you could do the same exact thing is with the other command stretch that we've already used. So I'm just going to show that really quickly. We can simply stretch it down 10. Does the same thing. Well, 20. Sorry, should have been 20. But it does the same thing. So, but sometimes, like if you have, like for instance, you have a wall drawn this way and another wall this way, and they're not touching. There's a big gap. You can hit extend. You can extend both those lines, shoot them right over. So that's in a case where you would use extend. So basically, so the other way that we could do it is if I am in trim, if I'm in the trim command. So if I'm in trim, and if I select everything, right, and I trim it back, and I go, oh shoot, I want to trim that back. If you hold the shift button, and I hover over that same line, it'll extend it. So trim and extend do the exact opposite of each other. So if you hold shift, it'll go back and forth. So I can bring it back. And then the same thing if I am in extend and I select all the objects and I hold shift, it'll actually trim it off. So I can trim it off and then bring it back. So they're like brothers or sisters, however you want to say it. You know, they do the same thing in the opposite direction, basically.
Which line we're trimming?
I'm sorry?
Which line we're trimming?
So if I do trim and I select everything, it's important to select everything because if I want to extend it back, I kind of have to have the bottom one. Okay? So if I trim this guy down, then I go, shoot, I don't want to trim that one. And I'm just, obviously in this one, it's just simple lines, but if you have like a series of a bunch of lines and you accidentally trim one, instead of doing undo, you could hold shift. Hold shift and and click on the same line that I just trimmed, and it'll extend it back to that boundary point.
The one that was
Yeah. And the same thing with extend. Oops, not extrude, it's just EX. Yeah. So the same thing with extend. If I hold shift, it'll trim the object. So if I hit it and I extend it and then I hold shift, it'll trim it.
Yeah, I extended it. I can't trim it though for some reason. I got it extended. I'll get the piece.
So it's like that.
Right, that's what I've got.
Okay, and you want to trim it using extend or trim it using.
Trim.
So type in TR.
Can I just hit trim?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I'll hit trim.
Select all the objects
Right.
and then select the lower half of that vertical line.
Okay, so. Okay.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, and everything's highlighted still. It's been trimmed. Now, just to shoot it back.
Hold shift
Just don't shoot.
and click the center line again. So, one thing to note too, if you have and you're trying to extend it, and you highlight up here at the top, sometimes it won't actually extend because it's trying to find something to extend up. So if I keep clicking here, you notice nothing's happening. So it's just a weird thing that's within trim and extend. Sometimes it can't figure out that you are only trying to go that direction. Because if I had another line up here, gotta keep forgetting. So if I had another line up there, and I selected it, I could extend to that one, and then come down and extend to the bottom one as well. And then I could actually trim this part off. Well, no, I can't because I didn't have it, but I could actually trim that part off by holding shift down. So you could extend a line within the same command both directions as long as you have a boundary point and an extension there. So if this line was over, so if I were to extend this way, extend, and you see how it's not working, but it should work if I have projection. Yes, yeah, UCS. Oh, I guess not. Why won't that work? That's weird. Okay, never mind. Take that back. Doesn't work. You can actually set the edge mode to 1. Yeah. So that one gets really annoying. So edge mode should be set to 0. Because when you start trimming, like it'll trim like a little millimeter at a time because there's other lines. So when edge mode is set to 1, it's accounting for every single edge in the entire drawing. If it's set to 0, it's only accounting for, so basically edge mode for 0 is actually only the length of the object, but if you have it set to 1, it'll extend those objects forever into space. So that one's the most common thing that screws everybody up when they start trimming stuff. Happens in my office all the time, and no one remembers that command. But it's sometimes the AI just, when you do stuff so many different times, it'll actually change the different variables inside the program by itself. It's kind of weird, but there's actual working AI that learns your most common commands in your interface, and that's why when you start typing stuff, it'll actually populate it. So like here, you'll see if you draw long enough in AutoCAD, these will actually start to change over time because it's actually learning. It really is. So if I were to type layer 10,000 times, then guess what? Layer is going to be the next one underlined. So it's kind of cool, but at the same time, if you trim enough things and you do it a certain way, they're going to say, hey, maybe it's better if you turn the edge mode to 1, it'll do it by itself. And it kind of screws you up. So just nonsense on the side in case. Be able to fix it. But edge mode should be set to 0. Yes, okay. So trim and extend. Everybody good there? It's pretty cool, right? I mean, like if I were to draw a bunch of lines like this, then I could trim, select everything, and I got a nice little square now, right? So sometimes when you're doing construction lines, which we'll get into when we start drawing elevations and stuff like that, you guys will see that you use your construction lines a lot and you trim them off to form your shape. Yes?
What's the difference when, like for me, I double click when I click on trim? I
Yeah.
just press enter again.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So basically, if you hit trim and you don't select any objects, it's selected every single object in the drawing now, automatically. So now I could trim off anything I want. I could even come over here and trim these things off. You get what I'm saying? So I like doing it just because if I'm populated with 10,000 lines in there, I don't want it to think about all those other 9,000 lines I don't need. You know, so sometimes it's easier to select the objects that you know you're trimming, especially if you're in a big complex drawing, you just want to trim those one couple things. Maybe you have lines that are overlapping. You have, you know, for instance, if you had the ceiling grid, if you're drawing a reflective ceiling plan, you have the ceiling grid and you have the light fixtures. You want to trim off the ceiling grid but not the light fixture. and you just hit enter, it's gonna select the light fixture as well, so it'll trim those off. So you may wanna, so that's when you'd actually start selecting things. And there's actually better ways to do it. You turn layers off, or lock layers, or freeze layers. Different. We'll get into that too, but so it works both ways. I personally, when I do it, I'm usually picking the lines. You don't have to, like he said, you could just hit enter again, and you can see here it says or select all. So when I hit spacebar, it does the or statement. So it's saying, okay, select all the objects. So that's why I'm able to come over here and I could trim. You can see I can trim all these little individual parts, even though I didn't select any of them. You see? So, any other questions? Same thing with extend. You can do extend, and so if I were to, I'm just gonna move this one back over here. So if I do extend and I just hit spacebar, now if I hit this, it's gonna shoot it all the way down to where it hits something. So extend is really confusing because if you want it to go all the way down there and you got a bunch of lines in front of it, and but you want to get it to that boundary, you'd actually have to click it like 10 times to get to that line because it's only going to jump to the next thing.
Next line.
Yeah, because there's an algorithm when you click it, it shoots 10,000 rays or something like that, just like Hatch does, out into space, and it's shooting. It's trying to find a boundary, basically in the AI, or in the UI, I guess in this case, because it's not learning. But okay, good. No questions? Trim, extend. Cool. So the next one, fillet. I know it looks like fillet, but it's pronounced fillet. Unless you're an 82-year-old from New Jersey who always says fillet. One of the guys I work with. But so what fillet or fillet is actually going to do is you could actually start to radius edges. So, for instance, if I have a square line like this, and I want it to be a radius, and it could be any radius that it'll actually create the radius, and it'll trim it off and do all that stuff for you. In the ancient dinosaur days, even before me, you would have to draw a circle and trim everything off to get a radius on there. What? Yeah, exactly, with the compass. So, we're going to go back down to our squares and our rectangles now. And we're going to hit it. Fill it. I believe the shortcut is F. Yeah, F. So you'll see here that current setting mode equals trim. So it's going to trim the objects if they're going past each other. In this case, the rectangle, they're not. We'll do one next after that it does have to trim. And then it says the radius is set to 0. So if I go ahead and I select an object right now, it's going to do absolutely nothing because the radius is set to 0. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to type in R for radius. Okay, so now it says specify fillet radius. So let's just we'll do, what's that? The big one's 30, right? We'll do 10 so you can actually see it. Okay, so now you can see there, it actually says that the fillet radius is 10. So now if I click this top one, right, and I click the other one, I now have a rounded corner.
Select both corners, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
So radius 10. Pick the top, pick the right. I can pick the left, it'll do it on the left. If I pick the bottom, it's not going to do anything because they're not touching. If I pick this object, still not doing anything. Oh, that one will do it because they're overlapping over here, huh? That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So, yeah? Okay, so let's go up here. Back up to these lines here. We do the same thing, but as you can see, the vertical line's going past both of them, right? So if I do fillet, enter, and I'll keep the radius the same, and I click the horizontal one, and then I click the vertical one, you can see that it actually trimmed them at the same time. It's a really cool way to draw walls when you have them going past each other, but you want to trim them off. Because if you have, walls, two lines basically, so you're able to fill it both of them so that you don't have, but you could fill it to 0. You can set the radius to 0. and it'll actually. So let's do that. So if you go undo, and we'll do fillet, and then change your radius. So R enter 0, then enter again. So the radius is at 0, and do the same thing. So now click the horizontal line and then click the vertical line. And you can see it just trimmed both sides of both sides.
0 enter.
Yeah.
So the lines don't have to be touching at all for it to
Nah.
connect, right?
Nah. So that was gonna be the next. I was gonna do to that one I have on the left.
And then
Yeah.
which lines do we click?
The horizontal one and then the vertical one.
The bottom horizontal one.
It doesn't matter either one. They'll do the same thing. So, let's keep in mind too that when you do it, it depends where you pick. So you saw that I picked left first, so the left line stayed. So what do you think happens if I pick the right one first? Then the right one's gonna stay, right? So you see, so it does matter which ones you're picking first. Not necessarily horizontal and vertical, but it does matter which side's gonna be trimmed off. So you're picking the side you're keeping, I guess is the best way to say it. Versus in trim, you're picking the one that you're getting rid of. Okay? So, if we got this line over here and it's off in outer space, not even touching. So if I do fillet and I select the vertical line and then I select that line, it'll actually extend that line all the way over. You guys probably don't even have this line because I moved that one over in one of the, yeah. So it'll actually move it all the way over. So your lines don't actually have to be touching. They could be, as long as at some point they will intersect with each other. So even if this line is an angled line like this, it'll still work. I'll still be able to fill it together. Okay? So I'm just going to do something just so you guys could see. So if I do fillet and I do my radius and I do it at 100. So because my radius is too large for the two objects, it actually says it's valid. The fillet radius is too large. So if you click it and you're like, hey, it's not filleting, check your radius size. It's the most common thing. People will just sit there and click. It's not working, it's not working, not working. They think something's broken. Check your fillet size. Make sure that your fillet can't be larger than the length of the shortest line that you're actually trying to fillet. So that's fillet. Fillet. Yes.
So, okay, let's say on the T or whatever you have,
Yeah.
and you extend the line all the way at the bottom, and move it down like 40
Take this one?
No,
This one.
Yeah, move it 40 units down, and then you do
If it goes 40, is it going to hit? No, it's good. Okay.
and then you do the fillet. Would it just do the radius for it to connect?
No, but it'll actually extend the line. So if I gotta change my radius back to 0, so it'll actually extend the line too.
That's something weird.
That's because you got really big radiuses. So you did
I
two.
did a 10 radius.
You did this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll just fill the radius.
Yes, it'll automatically pick that radius. Of two parallel lines, it'll just make the smallest radius. So basically, if I were to draw a circle that's tangent radius or whatever from here, or the 2 point, I guess would work too. So if I were to draw that circle, right, and trim it off, it'll give me the same thing if I filleted the two lines. So the radius of this and the radius of this are the same. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I get you. So you can fillet two radius lines to create a racetrack. So we'll just do it real quick. Create a racetrack. Any NASCAR fans? Turn left. There you go. You're right. You guys call y'all racetracks now. Look at that. Huh? There you go. Horse tracks, race tracks, yeah. Cool. Anything about trim or fillet? Okay, so there's also something called a chamfer. So what a chamfer does is rather than a radius, it actually creates a 45-degree angle. So if we go ahead, I'm gonna get back to something that I could chamfer like this. Well, we'll do that on the square first. Let's do it down here. So we're doing it on this bottom corner. So you can leave the radius there. So right here in fillet, just below it is chamfer. So you can see there. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be a 45-degree angle. I lied. So in here, you're gonna see it's under trim mode, just like the other one, which is fine. And this is current chamfer distance 1 is 0, distance 2 is 0. So the first thing we're gonna do is type in D, enter, or you could click the word distance. So specify the first chamfer and let's just press 10. Okay. And then the second, it's gonna default and fill in the first one automatically. You can make it different if you want. For this instance, just leave it. So 10 and 10. Hit enter. Now, just like fillet, but this time we're gonna click the bottom and then the right. And you can see it gives me this nice little, basically chopped off the corner of the building. Okay? It works the same where if my two lines aren't touching, like these two aren't, it'll actually connect them. Or here, it'll trim them off if they're going past each other.
We don't have to put a specified scale there. We just select.
You're selecting the distance, so what it's doing is it's
They're just connecting them.
taking this distance, I think, here to here is 10. Yeah. So you see? So basically it's telling you you're going 10 and 10. So let's just do a different one. So if I did chamfer, CH, does that change? CHA, yeah, because change. I have it changed, that's why. So mine's just like CH. I think I changed it. But okay, CHA is a shortcut command. So if I type in distance and then we do 10, and then the next one I'm just gonna do 5 just for half. And then I click and I click. You see how it's now 10 this direction and 5 this direction. So distance 1 is gonna change the distance of your first click, and then distance 2 is gonna change the distance of your second click. So if I were to leave those and I do distance at 10 and distance at 5, but I go the other way, see it gives me a different angle.
Because you put different measurements.
Well, no, I use the same measurements, but I picked differently. So the first time I picked the horizontal, then the vertical. This time I picked the vertical, then the horizontal. So remember, it's distance 1 and distance 2, and it's first click, second click.
And that's because
It's just giving you a different distance. You could.
the bottom line is smaller than the top one.
No, well, it's because of the way I picked.
They just-
Yeah, it doesn't have to do with the size. It's not relative to any size of anything. If I pick the chamfer too big, it's just like the raise could tell me it's too big, you know. So let's just do that. And if I do distance, and I'll just do 100. And if I click and I click, see, chamfer distance is too large because the length of this bottom is not even 100 inches or 100 units, so it won't even do it. Yeah, yeah. So I think if should just draw an angle. If I do, it'll actually change that to an angle. If I do the distance at 20, yeah. So it actually could, you could do the you could do the max you could do is the length of the shortest segment of the line.
Supposed to be saving this stuff?
You can if you want. It's not gonna. I don't have to turn it in or nothing. So. Chamfer's cool, right? Fillet's cool.
Yeah.
Just you use it a lot when you start like using construction lines and stuff because rather than trimming stuff, you just fill it because it's faster.
Fire hydrant, there's a fire hydrant or something.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of different things you could do. There was one more in here. I don't even know if I want to do it. Blend. No, we don't have any curves and arcs yet. We'll do that later.
Okay.
What it does is it like takes two arcs and it'll fill in the segment. It's kind of, I don't know.
Make it a circle.
No, we'll make it a circle, but we'll do it later. I want to do arcs and stuff first and rectangles and all that stuff. So, but I just want to show you the modify commands because you need a lot of different modify commands. So the next one is array. So what array does is it copies it basically in a grid. You can do it in a polar array, which would copy it around a radius. You can do it in a linear array, which would copy it X and Y. So it kind of, you saw the, looks like almost like jacks, like old, jacks to play with. You can see kind of how it takes that one and it's actually going to populate it across. Yeah. So if you have something like a grid of trees or a grid of columns even, that you could array something really fast. Well, we're going to copy this guy. Oops. And we're just going to copy it over. I'm going to do 200 just to get it out of the way. Okay. I just did a 10 by 10 square somewhere in space. It doesn't have to be exact. Then we're going to go ahead and do array. And the first thing it says is select the objects. Select the objects. And all of a sudden, like, boom, some things come up, right? So you got a bunch of different stuff in here now. So you have the associative, the base point, the count, the spacing, the columns, and the rows. So what I'm going to show you now is the columns and the rows. So if you click on the word column, so you can see columns are working left to right. So there's 4 columns, right? It's defaulted to 4. So it automatically populated 4. So think of this as a grid, right?
Yeah.
So columns are going this way.
Yeah.
Rows are going this way. So right now, when I click columns, it's defaulted to 4 columns. So if I hit 5, it adds 1.
Put 4. That's what I wasn't getting.
Yeah. No, I didn't put 4. It's defaulted to 4.
Oh.
Yeah.
Rows.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And then here you could specify the distance between. So for our purposes, we're going to hit 10. So it's actually making them touch. So let's redo that and we'll do 15. So we'll do 5 and 15. Ooh, what did it do that for? Yeah. 15. There we go. Okay, better. Ooh, look at that. Hold on.
We're back to columns.
No, let me change this to 3. Okay. So, yeah, that's fine. Just leave it. Just leave it. Okay. So we're gonna go to columns. Should have 5. Okay. Then your distance between the columns should be 15.
It was already 15.
It's 50. Mine was 15 in like a decimal. It's kind of weird. So then with rows, you can do 3. So let's just do 4 just so we can see it change. And then we're also gonna do 15. Yep. 0. For the distance between the rows.
Yeah.
And then the elevation between rows, we don't want anything. So you can see if you had like a column or something, like a wide flange. Yeah, like a wide flange or something like that, then you wanted to basically make your basic grid to build a building, like a warehouse or something.
Yeah.
You just draw the one and just array it, space them, yeah, real fast, and then you can start doing your different things. You can do it with lines. You can do it with any shape that you can do it with blocks.
How do you change the shape?
So you would actually change the shape. So let's just go ahead and enter out of that one. Okay. So let's draw a circle. Doesn't matter where it is. Just give it 10. And then we'll array it. Pick it. And then you can see that it's automatic. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So with associative set to yes, it means that when I adjust one, they should all adjust. You see? So how I pick this one, like let's say, I really wanted 5 columns. If I click up, it'll actually add a column in there for me. So it's all working parametrically in the background that you don't even have to touch anything. And if I would change this one should actually,
Like array?
hold on, this one. No, I'm not even in any command right now. I just have the array. So if I'm in array, right? And I'm gonna delete this one. So if I'm in array, right? And see where it says associative at the top left? So if I click that and I hit no, then when I finish it off, they should be finite objects. You see how they're all individual objects now? So now if I move this one, it moves independently from everything else. Versus this one's associative, so it's going to continue to move within that array. Does everybody understand that? How you create individual objects versus an actual, like, something that's referencing another point and another object? Yes? No? Maybe so? So I'm going to get rid of this so that mine looks more like yours. Was it AR?
You can still use the explode command, correct?
You should, yeah. So I'm going to turn associative back on to yes. And then, so if I click the base point, and then right now it's defaulting to the center, right? So let's just say I wanted it to here. So now that's my base point that everything's going to be associative off of. That's all you're changing is the associative point of everything else. And when you're spacing out, so if I have the base point and I set it to here, and then I do this, when I hit spacing and I do, you know, this is the spacing between the difference one, it's just going to adjust it based off of that base point. So the base point is, okay. It's just affecting everything that's after. So if I do count, I go, we'll do 6, right? And I do 3. I enter out of it. And I think, yeah. So there's different nodes in here. So this one controls the overall end, right? So this will add and subtract, right? Forever, never, 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 right? I mean, not forever, but as many as I want. This one will actually control your spacing. So this is again only an associative array. If you don't have associative turned on, it will not. It will only adjust that single object that you're moving. This one will do the same. So, and this one I think goes both directions, right? If I don't have, yeah. If you don't have ortho on, you can. So, you can see array can be pretty cool. And if you're done with it, you know you never have to adjust it again. If you type an X, it'll explode it. They're all individual objects now. So it's no longer associative. So now if I move this guy, guess what? That's the only one that moves. Cool? Alright, so we're going to take a square, one of my squares, and we'll just put it up here in space. And then we're going to do array, but this time it's going to be polar. So, oops, I didn't do that right. Polar array. So, if I click on that, and I select my objects, so polar array is in the drop down arrow. It says polar array. So if I click that one, then I select my object. Then specify the center point. So the center point is, so like I said, the polar array is going to base it off of a radius. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick over here. And you can see how it spread out those boxes evenly around that circle. There's like an invisible circle that's in there basically. So I could do angle between, and right now it's at 60 because there's 5, and I could type in 30, and it'll actually only fill up half of that circle basically because I'm constraining it to be less than 60. So it's only going to do the amount. So if I do the rows, I didn't want rows. My bad, not rows. What's the other one? items. Yeah, items. So if I do items and I want to fill this in, I want less space between all of them. So right now it's at the 6. So let's just do 8. And you see the space in between all of them gets a little smaller. So I can do items and I can do 10. It's gonna get a little smaller, 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 smaller. The angle between is automatically gonna go back to even unless I go in here and I physically change it to 20. Ever been messing around with the polar array? It's kind of cool the way it like does it kind of for you, right? Anybody not have a polar array going? Did you find polar array?
I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
So select them all.
No, you just have to select one. Just select one object. You can select them all. Let's do that. You want to do that? Let's do that. Here, I'll do that. I'm game. There. Just, I don't know if you have like the same building you want to put around like a cul-de-sac or something. You could.
I did a bunch of these.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, like a polar array, you may do if you're drawing like a gear or something, like some sort of part where you have a circle and then you have an arc that's trimmed out. You could polar array that all even so that all the spacing's all even, so you have to copy it a bunch of times. You guys want to do it again? We'll do it with a circle this time. So we do polar array. Select my base point. So I'm just gonna pick here for now. It's gonna populate with 6. Then I could do items and I could do 8, and then it'll close in the gaps a little more. But everything's based off of that midpoint, which you could change. So the base point, let's say it's over here, or sorry, not that one. Only when I'm out of the command. So if I get out of the command, I do the base point. See, I can move all of them at once. Because they're all associated with each other. And then if I drag this guy out, I can make the radius bigger. So now I'm no longer in the command. And then I want to add more. I think I could add more, right? Yeah. Oh, I was just moving them. Any questions on array? Just no.
So this will, you will use this like if you're doing a design on the floor or something like that.
You can do that, yeah. If like you have like some crazy tile design or something, or like I said, like if you're drawing a gear, think of like a gear on like a bike.
Yeah.
And you know it's a circle and has a bunch of teeth.
Yeah.
So, like you would simply draw the circle. You could draw an arc. Then you could take this arc, polar array it around the center of the circle, and then you'd come in and trim it all out. Everyone should be paying attention because this is actually part of one of your projects. So, you know, you can start to see that. So, yeah, kind of got, I don't know, doesn't really look like gear, but you get the gist.
And it even though it was one piece at all, because you know how you trimmed it?
I had to explode it in order to trim it. So it's no longer an array now. Like this one's still an array. Like I can still adjust it, right? But these ones, you see how they're all individual arcs now because I exploded the array.
But I'm saying you were able to just trim the little piece that was left out.
Yeah.
It does it automatically
Yeah. So
because it was touching the other line.
yeah. So basically, right now this array's still here. So I have to explode it so that I could trim this piece off. Cause what?
Once you explode it, it becomes.
So right now it's an array, right?
Yeah.
So I could trim off this part because it's not associated with anything. But if I go try to trim this part out,
It's gonna do the whole thing.
no, but it's not. It won't let me do anything because it's part of the other object. So I'd actually have to come and explode it, and then I could trim it. See, now it's an individual object. Yes, you will draw a gear on your first project. That's part of it. I haven't finished it quite yet because I wanted to make sure that we cover all the points that are in it before I get there. Just a reminder, you have Monday off, holiday, Labor Day. For all you does work, good job. If you don't, go get a job. It's still a holiday, so I won't be here. So the last one is kind of crazy because we haven't really gotten to like curves and stuff. So, but we're gonna go ahead and let's draw a polyline. I don't care what length it is. I don't care if it's straight or it's angled. Matter of fact, let's just make it angled just for fun. Just look something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure it's a polyline, not two line segments. And then let's draw a circle at the end point or the start point of the line. So you should have something that looks like that. And then if we go and we hit path array, it's the third. So you have rectangular, we did polar, now we're gonna do path. Select both of the objects. Oops, sorry. Select only the circle. My bad. Hit escape. So just select the circle. And then you get an enter. Then select the path. And wham bam.
Everything lit up on this one.
Yeah, I
Circle and everything.
no, just I said that first. I was wrong. So hit escape. And then go ahead and hit the path array. Select just the circle. Hit enter, then select the path. So this might be if like you have, I don't know, you have a funky spline or something, and you have a block of trees that you want to use and you want it to follow along. So you could have trees actually like follow like a curvilinear path, like for instance like the landscape architecture. Something like honestly like that. I used to have to do Illustrator to do that kind of stuff, but now you could actually do it here. It's kind of cool. And again, you could do anything, like any object you want. So if we had a block in here of a block of like a plant of a tree, so we haven't got the blocks yet obviously, so don't worry, but basically what a block is a drawing that you grab from another drawing and you put it in there, and you can't modify it unless you completely explode it. And all it does is it's something like, for instance, this desk, right? It's something that I'm going to copy 700 times within the room, right? So I would choose a block. That way, if I decide when I'm drawing the floor plan and someone says, oh, we're changing that desk, it's no longer that desk, it's this desk, I could go change the block reference rather than change it 700 times. I change it once, it changes all 700 of them. So we'll get that with the blocks, but that's what I'm saying. So you can see something like that being populated, or maybe if you're laying out like chairs and stuff and you want them evenly spread out every, you know, like if you're laying out these 4 chairs and you have an overall length, you can say put 4 chairs on there. And so there's various ways that you may use the path, but the rectangular is probably the most common. Well, at least for me, but like in engineering, I can see you using the polar array a lot, because you're always constantly having, objects referenced around a circle for like gears and parts, and if you have pulley systems and stuff like that, that you need to have teeth that are drawn on there for different things. So, and usually those, I mean, you can even do like two separate polar arrays, one on top of another, where one tooth is like a longer tooth and the other is short, so that you can have. So there's different things you can do like that. So, you could have. It just depends on the shape that you're using. So in the polar array, you could have the shape go inside of the circle and then trim it out, like I did with the gear part. You could have it go outside the circle and trim it, and you don't have to trim it out. You could fill the entire circle with the object too. So Ray's kind of cool. There's a lot of different things that you could do with the Ray, and it's really cool because they made it really associative. Because before, it used to be in a dialog box that would pop up, and then you'd have to click it, and then once you did it, it was baked, right? Like you couldn't adjust it. Now I could add columns and do all kinds of stuff. I can still adjust it even afterwards. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it's always getting better, seems like. So, and then the last ones, just here really quickly. We've kind of already gone over erase. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, erase is erase is erase. Shortcut command is E. Delete on your keyboard also works. I don't think backspace works, does it? No, I don't think so. Backspace works on a Mac. I know that. I don't know why. It's stupid, but they don't have a delete key. They only have backspace. So, then below that is explode, which we kind of already talked about. So, for instance, you have either type of array, and you want to modify just this circle right here. You come in here, you could explode it, and now I can modify this circle. Say I want it to be that big now, just for some reason. Or like we were saying with the rectangles, if I explode it, and I just want to get rid of that one line, and I want the rest of the lines to stay, I can explode it like that. So explode does that. It breaks apart something that has multiple segments to it. And then if you're in a block, when we get there, you'll see that you could actually explode a block, and then it's no longer referenced with everything else. So, and then the last one, I believe, is offset. Right? Offset, yeah. So, we're almost done. Almost done. Okay, so the last real one is going to be an offset. So, if we take this horizontal line right here, and we type in O, or type in offset, so the first thing it's asking you is specify the offset distance. So you can do one of two things. You actually type it in, or you could actually have a pick point and another pick point, right? And it'll jump there. So offset. Yep. So if you type in offset, and let's just say, for instance, we want to do it 10. So if you type in 10, click the horizontal, click up, it'll jump up, and it creates a copy of that 10 inches or 10 units away. If I click it again, I can keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So it's another way to kind of create your own array at your own pace. You do this a lot with, rooms and stuff. You draw a border of a room, you offset the wall thickness. You could also offset specifically to a distance. So if I want to offset from here to there, go away. How do I have?
You specify 2 points? There it is.
I don't know, perpendicular. There. Yeah. So this will actually now offset all the way down to touch the other one because I specified the distance. Set by layer. change, lengthen, edit polyline, edit spline, edit hatch, edit array. Okay, so here's a good way to, so you have the array here. If you're in the home tab under modify, under edit array, and then so now the source, you'd have to pick the source, okay, and then now you're into editing this array. So I could actually take this and let's just offset it by 2, and you can see that it's actually editing the entire thing. So if I wanted to go in and change my source object that I originally was working with, so that's just another part of array, is editing the array. So even after you've arrayed everything, as long as you didn't explode it, you could go in and change the shape that it's referencing. So I mean, I could even come and put like a circle in here like that, and it's actually gonna show up as part of the array now. So there's your crazy floor pattern you were talking about. Yep. How do I get out of this thing? No. No escape. No working. Beats. Oh, up here. Duh. Save changes. Okay. Just like block editor. Let's see what else is down in here. Align. Go over that later. Break. Break at point. Join. So there's the join button that we talked about earlier, where, you know, after we did p edit and join, you have a button here. It's under modify or join. Control J may work. Yeah, bring to front. So we'll go over that later. Arc, rectangle, draw. Yeah. Let's do some arcs. Got a couple more minutes. Not too hard.
I need another paper.
You got infinite amount of space, dude. Look at this. Keep going. That's what my boss always tells me. Just keep drawing. You got infinite amount of space. Okay. Computer will crash eventually. So we're gonna do arc. We're gonna do arc. The shortcut command is an A, I believe. Yep. So
Arcman?
what's that?
Arcman?
Arc. A-R-C.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's 2 different ways you can do the start point. So if I click a point, take ortho off, then I click another point, and you can see that it draws it really kind of weird. Arcs are really weird. Click the center, so you could draw it that way too. So there's 2 different ways to draw it. Everybody get that?
What was orc?
No, F8.
Oh.
So this one you're kind of drawing like the tangent points, and you're drawing a second chord. The second one's a little easier because you're drawing a center.
Isn't it 3 points?
It is. It technically is 3 points: a start, and then a chord, and a chord.
We're not specifying a point.
No, you just pick a point and start point, and then pick the second point.
Yeah.
So you pick the second point, and pick a third point.
Yeah.
The other way you could do it is if you do arc, and you pick the start point, you click end. Oops. What the? Hit end, and then now. That's freaking weird. I always draw it this way. If you hit center, it draws it a lot smoother. You see how it draws it when you draw it with center? It follows your cursor. I guess I should draw one smaller. So, if you hit center, you're actually clicking the center point of the arc, and then you're clicking like I guess it'd be the radius of the arc, and then you're gonna do the length. So it's like reading rainbow. Yeah. So. probably won't have to use arc too much. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I could see it. I always fill it everything. It does kind of the same idea.
For the gear, you gonna give us specific
Yeah,
measures.
it's part of the overall. Yeah, it's like 4 objects, but they all reference each other, so you're using the same. Yeah, using tangent lines and things like that. So I'll get to you guys next Wednesday. That's what I'll be doing on Monday. All right. Any questions? So, Mr. Vacation Man gave me anything. So since you were here on Monday, I do have a field trip planned. More than likely on a Saturday. No, no. I'm still trying to come up. I just want to make sure that everybody's has availability and stuff too. So yeah, I did. I got it.
Where we going?
To my shop. So I work in Corona, and we manufacture cabinets and fixtures and other millwork pieces. We have a full metal shop, 2 CNC machines. So just an idea of cause I told these guys last time, I went to school here from 2004 to 2008. I took this very class, and at the end of the class, I got a job working drawing CAD. So that's kind of my whole thing, and I just want you guys to see like the professional setting of what kind of a manufacturing office. I wish I could take you guys to each and every one of your professions, but I don't know enough people to do that. So yeah. So is there any other is there any Saturdays that people have off? I don't know if there's religious holidays on Saturdays or something. I want to be respectful for that. So. Yeah, that's fine. I remember you said something. It was the end of September? Okay. So, and then I will also be going on vacation from, what day is it? I think it's the teens. The 13th and the 15th. No, sorry. That's August. September. The 17th and the 19th I'll be gone, I think. Something like that. So, we're going to make up, basically one of those days get made up by going to the shop on a Saturday. And then the other one. What's that?
Happy hour after.
I can't condone any alcoholic beverages.
I
It's
swear
a
to God.
Saturday.
No, but
They
that
would not
doesn't
be
matter.
alcohol for
There-
Saturdays.
September 19th or?
Why
Yeah,
can't we do
I think-
Christmas weekend?
There are minors in here, and there are people under 21. Therefore, we cannot meet in it. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's right up. Shame on me.
Yeah. So
I don't even drink.
I can't even say, hey, let's meet in the bar.
That's right, I forgot.
That was actually one of the things they told us during orientation was, don't set your office hours to a bar, and don't set your office hours. I don't know. They were saying some stuff. Yeah.
Actually, everybody that young need alcohol is